So, guys, obviously at the end of that, I don't even know if you remember saying this, but you were talking about the upcoming year, and talking about how great it was to be, the finals and everything, and that that hopefully in 2021 that yous would be the ones playing in it and not watching it, and you did manage to do it, both of you, in obviously in the ladies and the mixed finals. But so like to look at the 2021 season, obviously a very different season. Like it was so intense. Like I don't know what you all thought, but it really felt like we were on the road like every week. That you're nearly just kind of recovering match to match. You couldn't properly train and prepare for the next one because it was just recovering from the one that you had played. But what were the thoughts on the 2021 season? Like we might start with the ladies. So yes. So like obviously you had Adamstown and Glenbarntown in the final, and in the semi-finals, your own club came up against Adamstown. So how did you see that all panning out? Obviously we had looked at briefly doing it in 2020 at the start of the year. Would they have been your favourites for the 2021 season, or had did you pip that okay, maybe they're just a one-hit wonder? I know a lot in briefly would strongly disagree with that, and obviously a season can go any which way, but what way were you looking at the ladies going into it? Who was your team to beat? And
yeah, well, as you said, I would have probably tipped briefly at the start because of the way Hoppy was playing and that, and they were just great in the final. You just thought it was going to just step on again. I don't know where they ended up. Did they get to the semis? But I'm not too sure. But the
extra innings against Glenbarntown.
Yeah, that's right. I thought Lincoln progressed very well. They got themselves together. They didn't start very well, but they gelled very well by the end of it, and they were a great team by the end. And they played Adamstown in the semis. It didn't work out for them that day. They dropped. There was a fair few catches that they dropped. If they did catch those, it would have been a different game altogether in the semis. But the surprise package, I'd have to say, would have been Adamstown. They came on heaps and bounds. I think the shortstop, I don't know the girl's name, she was just amazing. I saw her in the semi-final and I thought she was great. And she proved it again in the final herself. She was a standout player for me this year now, I have to say, or last year. But Adamstown was the surprise package for me now, I have to say.
Okay, and Marie, obviously, first of all, congratulations. I hope that celebrations are still happening, and or maybe it's all focused on the upcoming season. But obviously, you had that prediction, or maybe it was more kind of half hoping that you would be there in the final for 2021. What way did you think that the season went? Obviously, he's had the great success, but were you looking at that final in 2020 and saying, God, you know what, we could do that?
Yeah, like the ladies' setup was slightly different for the men. So you're talking about like week in, week out, whereas the ladies' groups were quite small. So it was a very elongated group stage. So I think we had times where there was like 5, 6, 7, 8 weeks between matches in the groups. So it was really hard to tell by the time we had gotten to the semi-finals, where anyone was really. We had, and everyone knows at the start of the season, again, you're rusty and you're waiting for players to come back. And we had drawn 2 of our games in the group. So we drawn against Cuchulainn and we had drawn against Bagnallstown in the group and had beaten Glenbarntown in the group. And the beating of Glenbarntown in the group, we had to win our final game against Bagnallstown. So we had nothing really on the line against Glenbarntown. It was not that if we had a won or lost, we'd still been fighting for a place in semi-final. So I think it was the first chance we had gotten to play the Glenbarntown ladies and get that monkey off our back as such, because they're our closest neighbours. They're only up the road. They're obviously one of the main teams in the last 5 or 6 years. So we played them at home in a group game and had won. And I think that was really the turning point for us to say, well, we've beaten one of the best teams. We can kind of organise. And as the season went on, we played Limekiln in semi-final, and just built on confidence from there. And then we finished our game and we were looking across at the briefy Glenbarntown game, which went to extra innings and just looked like an absolute cracker of a game. And either of those would feel hard done by to go out. So when Glenbarntown pipped them at the very last minute in the other ladies semi-final, I think briefly will feel very unlucky not to have made it back to 2021 final again. when Glenbarntown won, we kind of felt, well, we'd already done it once this season. We had already been in an All-Ireland versus Glenbarntown in 2019. So we'd been there before, we had learned a little bit from it. We were probably a little bit more mature as a team and organised as a team, I think. And then the final played out as it played out. So I don't think it was a surprise for me when I said it in the 2020. I certainly wasn't joking. I know Eddie laughed, but I definitely wasn't joking. And I think with the ladies, as it is, like there's those top 3-4 teams that are all very, very similar, and it just depends on that day, that edge that you bring. Like if we had played briefly in 2020, they were so primed, be a different story. So yeah, I think we just we're very confident following group wins, semi-final wins.
You were actually missing a few players as well, weren't you? In the semis.
In the semis, yeah. Actually, Justin Barnes, he was getting married the next day. So he said to me before the football, he says, "If I get a black eye," he says, "you're going to pay for this." Just the timing of that.
But yeah, no, just like that brings us nicely onto the men's. And guys, obviously, you know, the duo got reunited to do the commentary. You know, you spoke earlier how it was, you know, it was the same but different from doing it the previous year. You know, what did you think of the 2021 season in the men's? Obviously, you know, it was, I'd say, probably the most competitive year group wise anyway. Like, you know, every team was taking points off everyone. Like it was very, very tight.
Yeah,
oh, sorry.
No, I was just saying I expected, say, Glenbarntown and Carrick because, and I know the fatigue side of it is one side, Ronan, but I expected them to be so sharp coming in, whereas everyone else had off-season time, you know, and it takes that little bit of time to get up to speed again and working back as a team and back into like heavy training. Whereas I kind of thought Carrick and Glenbarntown have come from this really competitive All-Ireland final straight into the new season. They're already, you know, 3-4 steps ahead of everyone. So I was no surprise that you had gotten back to the final for me.
No, I was just going to say, you know, like you ended up having a repeat semi-final of the year before, you know, playing the Heat. Was there anything in your minds thinking, God, the last time we did this, it had to go to extra innings. This is just like, did you nearly have that siege mentality going into that game, or were you just viewing it saying, look, we got the monkey off our backs at the start of the year, we got that All-Ireland, let's just treat this like every other game?
Look, to be fair, when we got to the semi-final, it was kind of more so thankful that we rode on luck that year, to be fair. You know, obviously we beat Cuchulainn in the first game, we kind of beat them well, maybe 17-10 or something like that. And I think we played Limekiln and we had maybe 10 points in the bag, but we didn't really play that well after. Glenbarntown actually bet a 6-5 in Scream. That was a tight game as well, could have went anyway. Just to get to the semi-final now in the men's, I don't think people maybe outside of it actually realise how difficult it is. It's literally one drop in a game could cost you your place. You see with Cuchulainn, to be fair, Cuchulainn actually, Darrell would have had using the ropes for a long time in that game at Diamond Park, and probably to save something out of the game, but they probably came a wee bit late to the party at the end of the season. But it could have easily qualified.
Yeah.
Adams, well, like there was no easy game in it. We played Adamstown and Carrick, and we probably started off fairly well, and we were going well, but they still come into the game, and it wasn't easy to finish off any team. So we were kind of happy enough to get there. Plus, we lost a few fellas. Darren Mountain obviously broke his finger the week before the final, so he had to get surgery on that. And we didn't have Oren, who was probably our main player. We didn't have him, and we didn't have Paddy for a lot of the year, and we were kind of filling lads in and out, and it was working, to be fair. But when we got to the semi-final, we said, after we played the Heat in the league game, we said, look, we can't go out and play the way we did the last week. We just said we're going to have to change this, and we went. I know you alluded to it in the final that the way we were set up was a wee bit different, but
yeah, it worked perfect for the semi though.
It did. It worked the charm in the semi-final, but
you just caught. To me personally, if you looked, I was looking at it from the back, and you could just see it just caught the Heat off guard. They didn't know. It was like they just thought they had a free hit outfield and just let the ball go. just kept hitting it into your left outfielder. And they wouldn't change the tactic. They just kept doing it and kept doing it and kept doing it. And you were just looking back on, it really worked. You were just surprised that it actually really worked.
It did work, and it's probably a bad thing that it worked at times, because we did try in the final, and obviously it didn't work. But yeah, it was a cracker of a game. That I know you were both probably, you were all probably watching it come the end. It was maybe 19 all going into the last innings, and we got the last couple of runs. But trust me, there was nothing in it, and it could have went either way. I mean, Barry Lamb and Colin Keown had two massive games in that. I remember Barry Lamb. He actually said to me, he said, "I'm not even going out tonight." He said, "I'm not wrecked after that game." So it was good. And then it was probably one of the best days we've had for a long time in it, because Bonesy was getting married the next day, and we knew we were after getting to a second final, so we had a lot to be cheerful about. But obviously, as the final didn't go away fair enough. But look, we had a lot to be positive in 2020. And 2021 about it, and that's probably what made me happiest, is that we're fit to get back to a final. Right, we didn't win it, but we were still capable of getting back there. And you know how tough it is, Eddie, and you too, Darryl. It's not very simple.
And as you said on earlier on, the surprise package I got, I'd probably say for next year's Ballon. As you said, they came late to the party, but I don't think they'll be coming late next year. Then anyway, they were brilliant coming the end of the season.
Yeah, they were flying. How did you find 2021, Darryl? As you know, obviously I call it not a normal year when Iron Eagles don't make a semi-final in 2020. That's not a dig, but I'm saying, like, you probably felt like you had something to prove.
Well, like, I mean, we'd always kind of back ourselves, so it would like to, we'll respect everything that we're playing, but at the same time we don't really get intimidated. So even like not getting out of the group in 2020, like, it wasn't really playing on our minds, because, as I said, like, we just back ourselves, that we know, like, offensively and defensively, like, if we're on our day, if we click, we know what we can do. And it's like, right, well, that's up to you. Can you stop us? So, like, we'll just go out and try and implement our game, and just see what way it goes. Now, obviously, it was a bit of a funny year, so you were missing people with COVID at times, and we had players injured, much like yourself. Like, I suppose, not having Ollie, like, it was, injuries kind of restricted his participation this year, and like, Ollie's been an immense player for us. Like, he's been, absolutely unbelievable in 2020. Like, I think, even though it was one of our worst years, because as you said, we didn't even make a semi-final, but like, the stuff he was playing that year was like, he was a colossus. Like, he was brilliant. And then kind of losing him, obviously Shane stood in on first base and did a great job, but like, it was just different, not having people, and out week after week, you were more likely to lose someone. Like, we were missing, Michael Cullen was out for the whole year, Barry McArdle, was out injured for a lot of it. So, it was funny in that sense, but you just kind of have to get on with it, and like, you just have to believe in your players, that that even though you might have some people missing, it's like, look, you still have enough of a panel, you still have enough guys there that can come in and do a job. And like, one of the funny things with us, I suppose, is, and Marie kind of mentioned it, about doing the 2020 final, trying to get the teams or whatever, is that, like, we might not know who our team's going to be. So, like, in a way, like, that's one of our strengths, that every guy is there ready to play, and they're just going to get the shout just before the game.
You could see that as well. As I was saying, it was the worst thing we could have done, was actually beating Iron Eagles in the first game of the season, but it was the best thing that happened for Iron Eagles, because they just went into game out. They were on the back foot, and they just you went on to win most games then after that, didn't you? You've done what you had to do. But it was just that difference of, well, we can't lose. We have to win every game if we want to make it. And you've seen it. Well, we had that other idea going, well, we can still lose a game, not to worry about. Focus on the next one. It's just that first game of the season was a big difference between the two teams, I'd say. We're used to losing. Well, we're not used to losing, but if we were to lose to Iron Eagles, we kind of know, right, we're on the back foot. But this time we weren't on the back foot.
Watching it from the the commentary side wrote it, watching 2020 versus 2021, even though they're only a few months apart. And I know it's a team game. And the reason why we gave Oren the man of the match in the 2020, just for the sheer amount of ground he was covering. For me, watching it, I really felt that he would have made a huge difference in the 2021 final, just purely because he is like Daryl, he can cover like acres of space, and it kind of gives a bit of fear to the batters that we have this like greyhound out here that's going to like catch every single ball that goes out. So for me, watching it, the two side by side, that's what I felt even before the match, going, how are they going to cover the space of two men that he was covering the year before?
Yeah, and it looks like a strange setup, and I think to be fair about it, obviously everybody knows it. The way the final went, off the Iron Eagles absolutely routed us. We'll just get that out there. But look, to put it into context, look, 2 weeks before, the same team had played against the Heat and done really well, and Monaghan GAA fixed the club hurling final for the same day, and it couldn't be changed. So look, as much as the boys wanted to probably pay, they probably felt like, you know, they'd been playing hurling since the 6 or 7. I didn't expect them to be honest, and I left it up to them. And look, they couldn't play or whatever, and we probably still felt that we had the players to kind of do the job, and it just didn't click on the day. And you have days like that, and I think every team's experienced that, is you just have a day where just absolutely nothing will go right for you, and it was a bit, and that's not taken away from the Eagles. They were unbelievable from the first ball. I just knew we were in trouble, to be honest with you, and it kind of petered out that way. It probably disappointing probably for people neutrally who was probably really looking forward to it, because again, you can allude to this, Darryl, like the league games would be fairly frantic, like between the two teams, and there mightn't be a whole pile in it at the end, but I tell you what, you know you were in a game after.
And have been there when they look like they have magnets in their hands and they're getting like impossible balls and they're hitting impossible balls, and you just feel like the world is colluding against you. So I felt for Carrick, because everything was going right for Iron Eagles, and like it was so impressive to watch, Daryl, your infield player and the shortstop even, and there was very little Carrick could do, even if it was going absolutely amazingly for you. Iron Eagles just were on fire. It was lovely to watch on one side, but hard to watch for you, Ronan.
So guys, we'll motor on to the mixed. So you know, I suppose probably starting point is Lincoln and Adamstown in the semi-final. You know, it was a cracker of a game. I got watching most of it, you know, before our own game started, and it was highly entertaining. Marie, thoughts? You know, like,
yeah,
was it an uphill battle?
No, I tell you, it was one of the toughest games for us, because the condensed season, like, is in every code of GAA. So we had all of our female players, well, most of them, playing a club football game earlier that morning. So we played the first maybe 2-3 innings without the kind of backbone of the ladies side of our team. So it's all about like that organisation. It was, you know, not knowing who was playing, waiting on players, and it was just confusion, and we were all a bit unsettled, I think, when we started. It just happens, the circumstances. So once the game started and the first couple of innings were over, and then we kind of had the team settled, then we gave it a good rattle, and we could have pushed on. Lincoln could have hammered us out the gate. Just the innings went different ways, and there was some great play by some great players, and yeah, and then we were still on a high from winning the ladies, and it was hard to turn around the following week to go back again. So, yeah, maybe again next year, I think there's a good mixed team there in Adamstown. The mixed championship in general is incredibly tough. Like, there's no such thing as a bad team in there at the minute. So you talk about surprises for this year, surprises for next year. It could literally be anyone, you know, on any given day, and especially with a longer season, and we go quarterfinals, semi-finals, finals again. You know, there's 5 or 6 teams that could win the mix there next year.
Yeah, I just remember that game against Adamstown. We got out of the blocks and we ran off with a lead. But I think in the middle innings, both teams are shut down for runs. but I think we might have had 12 runs, and it was too early to have it that kind of a lead in a match, especially when the team could get back in it. And I think it was the 5th inning. All of a sudden, he's just clicked and he's got like 9 runs in the inning, and then it was back to kind of level. Then the whole game just ramped up. It went up to another level, and it was a good little rivalry to get it over the line. I think your left outfielder, your big hitter, the fella, he just hit a ball and he hit God knows how far he hit the game. He got a homer out of it, didn't he?
Yeah.
And it was just like that moment was just like that could be that we had our own homer at the start of the game, and then your homer came in, and then it was like that could be the turning point. We started this game way too early with the runs, and this looks like it was changing. And for whatever reason, we just got it over the line. There was an incident on the pitch. Look, it happens as well. It was a bit of rivalry and stuff like that. But at that moment, it was just changed, and then Lincoln just took it over the line. And again, but it was a great game to be a part of as well, I have to say.
Yeah, and for our mixed team, it's only our 2nd year. So, and lots of our players aren't from Rounders lineage as such. They might have never played underage, so it's kind of a mixed match between a couple of parishes of people who have played before and haven't played. So we're still kind of bedding in as a mixed team, and it's one of the most enjoyable for me. And I was at the other semi-final, Daryl, yours, and I think that was my game of the season of all the ones that I'd watched. The Earn Eagles Glenbarntown semi-final.
Yeah, it was a tough day at the office that day.
Yeah. We had there was the one after us. We were really surprised. So in that game, you came into bowl. Is that game?
That game. Me and you were speaking 14. On the sideline.
Yeah.
It was crazy to watch.
Yeah, it was so interesting. It was one I wish that had been recorded, because for any, like the way that Glenbarntown had set up, and we played them a lot, I had never seen it before. And like Paul Cooper, who plays their outfield, one of the best outfield players, played in on third base and played practically side by side with the bowler. And we were on the sideline, seemed like a waste of such an amazing outfield players infield, and he absolutely dominated infield. And it didn't seem like Earn Eagles could find any way through, and it just seemed Glenbarntown had complete control of the game. And then they brought in poor Daryl to bowl. And Daryl, I had never seen you bowl, and then everyone on the sideline was just slack-jawed looking at the bowling performance when you came in. And again, I felt so bad for Glenbarntown, but the comeback for a neutral on the sideline, and there was loads of people there that were thinking of setting up clubs that were standing near us and were kind of, is this normal at a match? It's like, well, it's pretty normal. The kind of turnaround in that game. Yeah, it was incredible.
How many innings did you shut out Glenbarntown from the 12-run leads that they had? Did you shut them out 5 times in a row?
No. Paul Cooper actually got a run in, so they scored 1 in those 5.
Yeah.
So to be honest,
looking from
the rest of them didn't feel it as much, but I definitely felt like this game is over.
Yeah,
I just thought we were dead and buried.
I remember looking at the game, and you could just see. It was just like you were giving Glenbarntown, they were taking advantage of what they were seeing, and they were just getting them runs on the board before anything was changed. And you were blessed you'd done that change in that inning, because if you let it go one more inning, that was the game was done and dusted. So that was, I think Ollie made that call on the sideline, did he?
Yeah.
You just had to do something while you were losing the game, and what the big difference that it did. But yourself as well, and in the bowling area, and then Paul Cooper as well. The game just went. It was great to watch for tactics wise. But great comeback.
Yeah, it shows the impact of having a squad. There's certainly something I would have learned, and ladies have all said that over the years. Is if you have a couple of people who can come in, they can really, obviously, Daryl, you're not coming in as a sub or whatever, which are probably a mainstay of the team. But I'm just saying in general, isn't it great to have options to come in? And I think every team has them now, to be honest. It makes a massive difference, especially when you're coming down the stretch in a game there. If you have someone that can come in and maybe turn things on its head, it's brilliant to watch as well.
Especially in a 7-inning game.
Yeah, it's brilliant to watch.
Well, now Earn Eagles does seem to have this tactic when it comes to big games, where Daryl might pop in for the last 2 innings in the semi-final or the final just to confuse the team. So they're well capable of this trick. And it won't surprise you that was the team tactic that day either.
I don't think anyone's tactic is to try and give the other team a good confidence boost.
It's just to give a team a shake, and we done it against Adamstown as well. We had Adam bowling for the game, and when the game looked like it was shifting, we put Chris on in the last 2 innings, and it made a big difference to us. And it stopped Hughes hitting big when Chris came in as well. So it's good to have that kind of. We never really do that tactic, but it really worked for us in the semi-finals against you, Marie.
Yeah, and to be fair, like Darryl, your bowler wasn't making any big mistakes or anything. It wasn't that. It was just a complete, shift in mentality when you came in, and you were a faster bowler, and I think they just weren't getting the runs on the board that they were. But it was so entertaining. And then after seeing that, and sorry Eddie, I couldn't look past Earn Eagles then for the final. I couldn't see any way that you were going to be beaten after that massive comeback, and again that strength of character and the kind of dominating there. I couldn't see past you to win out in the final.
Yeah, well, we knew we had to find a way to get by them. There was no doubt about that, because of the players that they actually have. So we started the game shaky against the Eagles, and we then gradually Hughes went off like a rocket that game. But again, I think it was the third or fourth inning. The damage was nearly done at that stage, and then we just started trying to peg it back. And again, it was just too little, too late. We probably need another 2 more innings for the way we were doing it to catch up. But again, sometimes it's just how you start in these games. If you start fast, it's just about managing the lead, and that's how like Eagles are going to be one of the best teams probably the best team in rounders that will manage a lead if they have to.
On the mix, like it is so different because you can change it about, and then obviously, for the final against Limekiln, we had James back again, and like, look, I don't know, Marie, if you've ever played against James, but like he's just an exceptional bowler. Ronan, this is probably the first year you've really seen him in action, and
yeah,
he's a Rolls Royce.
He's probably the most underrated player, I'd say, in the game, because you're probably used to seeing him. If you're used to playing against him, you're probably used to seeing him doing it, and you don't pass much of that. But this year, particularly up against him, the speed he was throwing, I'd say he didn't walk somebody the whole year. To be honest, I'd say that's probably not far off the mark, I'd say, Darryl. But he had an exceptional year, and deserved it All-Star. He would have been up against a lot of stiff competition, but he was hands down the best for me that I've seen.
Yeah, no, so it was obviously for myself, it was a great season, and Marie will agree with that. But it was a funny one, and I say this kind of with a pinch of salt, saying that I hope the upcoming season, results wise, I hope it's the same or if not better for us. But I don't think anyone wants to see a season like the way that it ran last year, just with the relentless games and shutdowns and stuff with government restrictions and stuff that, fingers crossed, this one goes off without a hitch. I just want to say thanks a million for coming on that, and I'm sure we will hopefully hear more from you in the future and look to see you on the pitch. So thanks a million.
Cheers, Darryl.
Thanks, Darryl.